Welcome everybody to this week, June 20. I wish it was warm as June. July 29th. Oh God, that would be even warmer. January 29th, 2019. I thought I would get the year wrong, but I've gotten the month wrong twice now in about half a minute. Tonight we're going to talk about awards and prep for those awards and debriefing and so forth, the FRC Awards that you would get at an FRC event or the provincial championships, and possibly, we hope, at the World Championships. As with every time we do an Ask the Experts webinar, this webinar is being recorded as we speak. It will be saved and uploaded to the First Canada YouTube channel. We'll send that link out once it's uploaded to we'll do a Facebook post on the First Canada Facebook page. Everybody that's signed up for any one of the Ask the Expert webinars over the first few months of this season, starting in September, will get a email from me tonight or tomorrow morning, and it'll have the link to that, as well as some of the documents that you're going to see that are in the handouts area, and anything that we might do that might change along the way. If along the way you have a question, please feel free to ask your question. So I'm going to make one small change here because we have our friend Craig from Alberta joining us. So we're going to add him in here as an organizer so that he can join us as well. Now, I would like to, before we go any further, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I mentioned that there are going to be videos posted. There are lots of other videos posted going back a couple of years, including some that our friend, the famous Sean Lim, ex of 610 Crescent School, and now running another organization called Bot Camp, where he works on robots and teaches it in schools. He has some good people that do that, and he's done that the past few summers. So if you have any questions, if you have things about this webinar that you that we don't get to that you're unable to ask a question of, please feel free to ask any questions, to email me at pkeenan@firstinspires.org or paul.keenan@gmail.com, and you'll see those when I send you out those emails later on today. So if you do have any questions, there is a questions box, a chat box, that you can put them in, and we'll get to them as we go through. So without much, one thing I should mention is that one of the documents that's going to come out that you may have already gotten, and I'll send out again in case we add something during the course of the evening, is some tips from many teams, most of which I knew could not be on. We just don't have that much room for everybody, and I knew it's a busy time with exams and snow days for exams and so forth. People are trying to get all sorts of things done. So as a result of that, not everybody can make it on that gets invited, but they've sent along some tips, and I've converted it to a Word document that I'll send out, and that Word document is also in the handout section, as well as a robot lockup form for the last time, and a robot inspection sheet from last year, and the new one should be coming out shortly. So let's get started. So with us tonight we have, just as a fluke, that they're all 1,300 teams. I don't know how that worked out, it just did. We have Phillip Carmichael from 1305, Michael Geddes, 1360, and Rameesha Kazi from 1325. Rameesha, I hope I've pronounced your last name correctly. And we have notes and tips, as I say, from the teams in 1114, 4039, 4025, 6331, 4917, and some of the ones that are listed above as well. So thank you everybody for joining us. So we're going to ask people to chime in as we go along. If you have something that you want to jump in with, Craig, Michael, Phillip, or Rameesha, please feel free to do that. If I make a mistake, don't feel shy about saying you made a mistake. I was a teacher, so I used to make them every single day. I just don't have as many people telling me now that I'm retired that I'm doing that. But if I do make a mistake, please correct me. The first thing we want to talk about is there are awards that teams can try for, submit for before the event. And there's three key ones we want to talk about, but there are more. So one is already obviously passed. That was January 24th, a digital animation one. But the next two, the Chairman's and the Woody Flowers ones, are interesting. Chairman's is the big award. There's something that you have to submit by February 17th, 2019, 3 p.m. And those are online. Same as the Woody Flowers. The Woody Flowers is where you're going to submit about a mentor on your team. It doesn't have to be the lead mentor or the second lead mentor. It can be any mentor on your team. Now, we are fortunate, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have been nominated for the Woody Flowers Award, yes?
I have been. Can you hear me okay, Paul?
Perfectly.
Am I coming through?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, 2013. Huge honor.
And that was at the Calgary event?
That was at the Calgary event. That's right, yeah.
And did you win it?
I just won. What you do with the Woody Flowers Award is you get nominated, and if you do get nominated, you get what's called Woody's Flower Finalist Award, right? So you get a wonderful trophy, you get a little celebration at your regional or your division, and then you get your name entered into a hat to be the Woody Final Award winner in the championship itself. So very few people actually end up with that honor, be included. But yeah, I've got the finalist award.
It's a pretty spectacular looking trophy if you've never seen it. I should really have put a picture up, but the only person that has won the Woody Flowers at the championships from Canada has been Mark Bredner, as far as I know. So it's pretty unique. But yeah, it's a great honor to be even nominated, let alone be a finalist like Craig was. But each team should do that, and it involves some prep on the part of the award submitter. And then the other one I wanted to mention was the Dean's List Award, and that's 2 students are nominated. And as we go through this, we're not going to be able to go through all the details of every award. So the little link that you see up to the top here, that's a link that has information about the awards where you can click on it and find out more details as you go along. But what I really wanted to mention is that how these awards are submitted. So in order for a team to submit a Chairman's Award and a Woody Flowers nominee, those awards have to be submitted by students. And those students actually have to be on the online roster of that team, and they have to be designated as an award submitter. Now, we'll talk about that in just a second. The Dean's List Award, that's going to be nominated or submitted by one of the 2 lead coach mentors on the team. So that has to be mentioned. And this is prior to the event. And no, they will not give you an extension. Now, what I wanted to mention was, since I went through this whole thing and found it, is that this is where it links to. So this link will take you to there, and it goes through this whole thing I just mentioned about that. But if you were to click on one of these awards, it's going to give you more detail about it, and you can see it's got a brief outline of each of the awards there. We're not going to be able on this webinar to talk about all the awards and explain them, so you might want to take a look at that. That's in the link to the slideshow that you're going to get when we do this. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when you do submit, they're very picky about the timing. So I've had someone already ask me, as I mentioned when I was talking to the people before we went on, the presenters, that someone asked, "Oh, could I get an extension? I just heard about this." Well, it's unfortunate anybody would just hear about an award, but these things, I'm doing this, but these things have come out. Teams have been notified well in advance of this. So I'd tell you that that's not the case. You have to go by the dates that are listed there. You're not going to get an extension. Now, Phillip, I'm going to ask you and Rameesha and Michael, and this puts you a little bit on the spot, have you ever been nominated for the Dean's List Award?
I have, yeah. I was actually a Dean's List finalist in 2012.
And so sorry, that was before we went to districts, no?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And Michael?
Yeah, so I was nominated for Dean's List in 2017, but I only made it to the district level. I didn't make it past I didn't make it to district champs.
I see. And Phillip?
Yeah, I was nominated in 2011. I didn't win. Instead, our other team member, Martin Gagne, actually won that year.
Oh, yes, I know Martin. I didn't realize that. So it hasn't been around forever, though. It's not. It must have been when you got it, Phillip, one of the first years that
I think the first year was 2010 or 2009.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is that sometimes these awards are added to, and there's a new one from last year, the Autonomous Award. So did you know, Rameesha, that you were being nominated by your team?
I did know, yeah. I know previously they had tried to keep it a secret, but for me, what I found was that having the student know that they're being nominated, you can sometimes get a better picture of what they actually do on the team and sort of like tie in their extracurriculars. And I did know that I was being nominated, yeah.
And I think that's the way it works most now. I think when I was still coaching, it wasn't known, like we didn't tell the students. But I think, as Rameesha points out, you don't get as complete a picture, and it shouldn't really be a surprise. The surprise would be, or we hope, that you win the award. But that's a good point. Anyways, so the other awards that we'll talk about tonight, and some of the awards that are there, like the Dean's List and the Chairman's, are awarded at the event. But the rest of these awards, they're coming around and talking. The Dean's List and the Chairman's are going to have you in a room and talk to you as a Dean's List person or a Chairman's person. So we have one really good tip here. And this particular tip, the first one that's there, is ask them what award they are judging, which I've heard. So Rona Bredner, who's the Chief Judge Advisor for the province, along with Dr. Tom Lee, who's in this picture on the left end of the group of judges. Rona's point to me one time when we were in St. Louis was that the American teams, when they come around to judge, and she was judging there, they ask you, what award are you judging? And then they launch into their spiel. And they've prepared for it, and that's what we're talking about today, is trying to prepare for that. And the Canadians tend not to do that. They'll wait for the judges to talk to them, they'll answer the question, and they'll stop talking. The Americans, they just keep talking because they've prepared for it a little bit differently. And Arona's point was, let's see what we can do about providing a better opportunity for Canadians to win awards at the championships, and that's one of the things that she says you can do. So a couple of quick tips before we get to our panelists. Read the award descriptions, prepare for them, that you think your team has the best awards. If you don't do any entrepreneurship stuff, that's not an award that you're likely to win just because the students talk really well. Okay? The thing that some people don't know when they first start is the last point, and that awards are never given to all to one or two teams. So, for example, typically you're not going to win multiple judged awards. The kind of exception to that is a safety award, because it's not judged by these people. It's judged by the UL safety inspectors. And there are some other awards that are not really judged awards in terms of rankings and finalists and champions and so forth. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, I wanted to ask you, Michael, are you an awards presenter for your team?
No, so I haven't done any awards I haven't presented awards in Chairman's, but I have done a lot of talking to judges in the pit. So I've done a lot of that, both on the technical side of the team and on the non-technical side of the team.
So one of the things that happens, I think, is people think, well, I have to know everything. What happens when those judges ask you a question and you didn't know the answer to it?
One of the best things to do if you don't know the answer to a question is definitely to find someone that does know the answer that's in the pit. And if someone's not in the pit, just try to find someone that knows the answer. It's better to get someone that says the answer correctly than to make up the answer. And later when the judges come back, because if you're up for consideration for an award, the judges may come back. And someone says something different that contradicts what you said, you're going to look bad. So if you don't know the answer, get someone else on your team to help you that knows the answer.
That's a good point. Phillip, how do you guys decide at 13:05 who's going to be in the pits talking to judges?
All right, I'm going to actually hand that one over to Colton, who's one of our awards.
Sure. So this is Colton, yes?
Yeah.
Hi, Colton.
Yeah. Right. So one of the big, when we try and keep ourselves prepared and on our toes for the judges. One thing we do is we usually have a document of things that we think might be topics that might come up, and we practice just asking questions, make sure we're not caught off guard by anything. And a good way to know a lot of the stuff is to read your other submissions or anything, any documents. That's a good way to pick up knowledge and try and learn new things about your team. And I mean, that's one of the big parts is knowing. So when judges do ask a question, you're ready for it. And if you don't, then it's always good to pass it off to someone.
So I'm having the impression, Colton and Phillip, because I have wandered in to the 13:05 pit at more than one event. I tend to think that any strange face that walks in, that the people in there are practicing their pitches on those people. Is that?
Yeah. So yeah. Well, we say our pit is our stage. So we'll talk to pretty much anyone. It's a good way to promote first in your team, and you really never know who you're talking to. We've done partners and sponsors just by talking to people in our pits, and like I said, it's great practice, and that way, you know, and you get to kind of practice what you're going to say. Yeah, and it's also kind of a fun way for people to get to know your team, and you be able to kind of showcase what you did all season.
It's also a good way for students who are nervous to kind of relax, especially if it's letting individuals who might be around their age that they're more comfortable with talking to know different things. Right. Or something as simple as asking a 5-year-old if they want a button is a great way to get a student who might be a little bit nervous about something comfortable being in the pit and talking with different individuals.
So Rameesha, how does 13:25 set that up with who they choose?
So we typically have 3 presenters for chairmen, and I know it's impossible to keep everyone in the pit at all times, like everyone needs a break. So what we've decided to do is that we come up with like a rotation system. So there's always at least one person in the pit who's like really well versed in like the non-robot side of things, so that if a judge does come by and somebody starts talking to them and they're like, oh, like we have a business question, then that student can do what was mentioned earlier, where they're like, oh, like I don't know that answer, but like here my colleague knows and they can like help you out. So there's always somebody in the pit who's who can answer those questions.
Well, it seems like the one common theme from everybody spoken is that there's preparation in advance of the event, where this is practiced and everybody sort of knows their role, and that makes a difference. And it definitely doesn't make a difference, and that's why we have those tips from those other teams as well. So those are good points. The one thing that's probably most key to the people who are listening today, or many of the people, are the rookie awards. There's 3 at every event. That doesn't mean you can't win other awards. There's one award you can't win for sure. And that's the Chairman's Award, because rookies are not eligible to submit for that. But there's a Rookie All-Star, Rookie Inspiration, and Highest Rookie Seed. And you need to read about those, but it's not just what you... The only one is of those which is for what you do at the event solely is the Highest Rookie Seed, because it's where you finish in the standings. And in some cases that has something to do with your teammates as well, although I've seen teams that were outstanding. In Ontario, where we're based for this webinar, we have 23 rookie teams. And the awards, the Rookie All-Star and the Rookie Inspiration, do not actually have to be given out at every event. I don't know that that's well known, but they don't. The ones who win Rookie All-Star and Rookie Inspiration, they can qualify to win those awards than at the provincial and the provincial champs. Now, Craig, out in Calgary in Alberta, you have your big event with a lot of international teams, and your event is different than the district events. Yours is a regional event. Maybe you can talk about
the regional event.
What's that?
Yeah, that's right, Paul. It's a regional event. We're still on that format.
How does that impact the Rookie All-Star award winner, for example?
We still have Rookie All-Star. We still do a Rookie Inspiration. Doesn't happen every year. I haven't seen that for a couple of years, but Rookie All-Star certainly, and the highest rookie seed, that's the ticket to our championship in the States as well.
So one of the things that used to happen in Ontario is there were certain awards that you could win, because we were regionals at one point a few years ago, and those were, some awards were direct passages to the World Championships, and that's not the case in Ontario anymore. You have to, any direct passage comes through the provincial champs, but in some of those award cases you have to win at a district event to be in the running at the provincial championships as well. And there's going to be rookies that go to the World Championships from all of our events, from the Ontario provincial events and the Calgary event, the Victoria event, the two events in Quebec, in Montreal, and there's a new one in Quebec City. So they're all going to send rookies as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, both Rookie All-Star and Rookie Inspiration, a lot of that has to do with what you've done. Okay, so do we have any Rookie All-Stars with us? Michael, Phillip, Rameesha?
1360 was never eligible to be considered for any of the rookie awards.
Explain why that would be.
So 1360 branched off of 1334, and because we had, I think it was something like over 10 years of combined first experience with the mentors on our team, we were eligible to become a older team, and that's why we have the 13 series number, even though we're only a 14. That's why we have the 1300 number, and despite the fact that we're only a 4-year team.
So Phillip and Rameesha, do you know the history of your two teams, whether you've been a Rookie All-Star?
So actually in 2014, I helped to start 4917. So we won Rookie All-Star at Waterloo, and then we won Rookie All-Star at Worlds.
Excellent. And Phillip, do you guys predate that Rookie All-Star stuff?
1305 won Rookie All-Star award way back in 2004.
So that's pretty amazing. Just to think how that's like 15 years ago. It's hard to believe. We'll have all sorts of students on teams that weren't even born when you won that award. Does it make you feel old?
It does. It makes me feel old, Paul.
And what about out west, Craig? You've been involved with a bunch of teams.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. As a mentor and as a senior mentor, it's been a lot of fun. And we haven't got as many rookie teams as you do down there. I think we're only pushing about 3 or 4 rookie teams this year. But since we're regional, we have a strong international contingent usually coming in to flesh out our games.
So what countries have you got coming in off the top of your head? You know a couple of them?
This year?
Yeah.
Oh, well, historically we've had Mexico usually always comes. We have Israel's come. Australia usually comes. We have Hawaii. Hawaii is a great team. They come. We get, of course, a few from the States. Quite a few from the States, and they're all powerful teams. It's so good to see them. You can learn so much from them.
Well, it's a great event. So if you're a first alumnus and you're doing a co-op in Calgary, you're stationed in Calgary for a period of time, try to get involved in that event. It's a great event, as are the events in Victoria and Montreal. Just if you're going to Montreal, it's going to be loud. It's pretty spectacular, but everybody does it a little differently. But it's a great event. I know I would love to go to the Quebec City one, except that I'm feeling like in Ontario we're having Quebec City weather right now. It's pretty cold and snowy. So I think I want a little bit of a vacation for that. So the Rookie Awards only for rookie teams. Now, what we didn't mention is that each of these awards always also in Ontario, because we're a district, carries some points towards qualifying for the provincial championships. So whether you know it or not, each event that you enter, up to 2 events, will get you points for a bunch of different things, and winning awards is one of them. And the top 80 teams, I think, in Ontario will qualify for the provincial championship based on points, and then qualifying from the provincial championships to the world championships. And you keep your points, and you get more points at the provincial. So winning awards and thinking about winning awards and preparing for winning awards is important. So
just a
yep.
Oh, no, just a story about winning awards. In 2017, we actually wouldn't have made it to provincial championships without the awards we won. So awards are really, really important, and they do add up.
Right, and each year at the provincials, there's a team or two that miss going to the worlds by like 4 points, 3 points, and any one of those awards would have gotten them enough points to qualify. So it's a big deal for sure. So here is our list of some of the awards. We've mentioned some of them. If you don't look at them, you won't know when you talk to the judges. Maybe you do have this innovative thing that your robot does that nobody else does. It may not be something that wins you the championship at a district event, but it might be something that is worth talking about to the judges. And you'll notice, and they're all sort of mixed together, some are robot awards. Imagery is not a robot award. Gracious professionalism is not a robot award. I know we've said it's more than robots, but it's definitely true. And there are some amazing stories. Craig, there's an amazing story about teams, certainly from the very first event that was held in Calgary. And I know because I was there. Our team was there. And 1334 was there, Michael. And I know they've been there since, but that was a great story of.
It was stirring. It was a young fella who was up in Fort McMurray. Do I have a couple minutes for the story?
Yes, absolutely.
I can give you the short version of it. A very, very small team way up north in Fort McMurray was started. 3 or 4 people on the team, and by the time the competition rolled around, there was only one little kid, one team member left on this team. But he was determined to come. He wasn't the loudest kid or the most aggressive. He even maybe not as well known as the other teams. But he came with his coach. But they sent the robot up first. And now the robot arrived by Greyhound in a large plastic bag, the kit chip bag, but it was all smashed. It was just a bag of rubble when it showed up. So everybody had these beautiful boxes in their pits when they showed up, except for this poor team. He had a bag of parts, and he showed up all by himself with his coach, and he's despondent, really upset. Every other team pulled together. They came up to this kid. They put together a robot. They gave him an operating system. They gave him a defensive and offensive mechanisms. They volunteered a couple of members of their team to act as drivers. And this young fella went ahead and he competed. This robot actually ended up competing in the event. And just before the Alliance selections, he had to go, right? Because it was time to catch the bus back, and he figured there's no way I'm ever going to get into it. So last I saw this kid, he was heading out with his parka on and his backpack on, and they were calling out the Alliance selections. And the 3rd or 4th Alliance selection made by one of the teams was his team, right? And the announcer said, "Well, I'm sorry, he's already left. He's just left." And then there was this scream out on the hall, and this kid running back with his backpack and a big red face. "I'm here, I'm here!" And he ended up accepting the Alliance, partnership, and the whole crowd went wild. The teams just loved him. And he went back to Fort McMurray, and he was in the paper, and he got the team seated, and now the team is a powerful team. All kinds of people go to it. But it was a wonderful story, and it was a great example of gracious professionalism by all the other teams at our regional.
So that one would have been hard to pick an award winner for gracious professionalism because so many people did so much. I know 1334 at the time, Mr. George Chisholm, was one of the mentors, and he was there, and he was one of the people spearheading helping this. And he talks about it to this day. It's one of his favorite memories in FIRST. So there's a lot more than just winning awards.
That was probably the first story I heard from him.
Sorry, Michael?
Oh, that was probably the first. That was probably the first story I heard from him when I got on the team about gracious professionalism.
Yeah, it was a wonderful story, and the thing about it was true, and um, it was a community coming together. And when he ran in, he had to come from a long way, Craig, if you remember, because we were in
I remember.
the Olympic Oval where they have the speed skating. We were in the middle, and he had to come. It was a long run, let's just say, but it was a wonderful experience. I think everybody who was there remembers it very, very well. So great stuff. Some of the other awards and are here. The Judges Award, you can read about that. The Safety Award is not given out by judges. It's judged by the UL advisors. And there's Volunteer of the Year, which in a lot of cases is done by a committee in advance of the event. They know a little bit more about the volunteers, which is one you need to know about, I think. The other thing I want to mention about this picture, if you don't know, this is our Governor General, Julie Payette, and she's with two members from 1241. Now, I'm only, or it could be, I think it's 1241, it could be 1241.
Yeah, it's 1241.
Yeah.
And so two things I want to mention. One is that this young lady's wearing her safety badge that she earned, as many teams are doing. I know Michael's pushing that on his team, 1360, as are many other people. But these are two of the girls that were in the pits and or their chairman's presenters, and they tend to, as many teams do, dress a little bit differently. So keep that in mind. I don't know that it makes a difference, but you will definitely see that. I don't know, Michael, does your team do that?
No, we just we go in with our with just our team shirt or team sweater.
Rameesha?
Yeah, I was actually on 1241 when we started that shirt, and I think that it's just a part of our team since the team started, and I do it on 1325 as well. I've mentioned that to all the teams that I've helped out through the years that the shirt or whatever the kids wear should represent your team as best as it can, and if your team has like a little bit of like a quirky edge, like maybe find some shirts that represent that the best. But I think like for me personally, whenever I'm mentoring for chairmen, I definitely do want the kids to stand out a little bit more.
There you go. And what about you guys, Phillip?
So for us, all of our team shirts are business apparel. We always try and go for the adult business look. But for our chairman's presenters, it varies depending on the year. Sometimes our presenters are dressed in professional business attire. Other times we're dressed up. So for example, when I presented chairman's, I was dressed up as a chef all day. So it all depends on the year we're doing and the spirit you have with your kids. Sometimes we can go find other ones that are a little bit more serious, so we work to the skills and the mindset of the students.
So interesting stuff, for sure. So maybe one of the things that I wanted to mention is that it's not just at the event where you prepare for the awards, or it's the key time, the preseason, build season, debrief are also important. So maybe, Phillip, starting with you, you can just talk a little bit about how your team prepares.
So for us, one of the biggest things we do for preparation is reading the description of the awards. And it's not just once, we'll read them over and over and over again. And we're constantly looking at different ways in which it can be pulled. Every award is different, and I mean sometimes you think you're on the way, and then an award will change. Like this year with the Entrepreneurship Award, where I think it was November, so they announced the change to that award. So you always got to be paying attention to them, and also same with the game updates, they can also change things too. A lot of what we also do preseason is try and train students and see how they feel about different things. This is a good time to also try and be out in your community. It's a great way for students when you're getting acknowledged and going out in your community. It's also a great time for them to kind of get more comfortable with their different speaking skills and stuff like that.
So thank you, Phillip. Rameesha, I wanted to know, since you have this vast amount of experience from all these other teams, who preps the students who do the chairman's presentation or are talking in the pits? Who does that work?
So usually it's the business mentor. something that I've started to do is every time we have a judging session or the kids are talking to any kind of stakeholder or like a visitor to an event or anything, I ask them to tell me the questions they've been asked. And I've started to like basically build a database of questions that we've been asked over the years. And so we use that to prep. We like to have the kids do their presentation run in front of as many people on the team or sponsors if they're willing or parents, so that they can then get different perspectives of questions asked as well following the presentation. And we like to try and get them in front of as many different faces as possible, because I don't know about other mentors, but I don't like to go into the room with them when they are doing their presentation. So trying to get them comfortable with speaking in front of new faces is really important too.
Now, one of the interesting things is that both Michael and Phillip are part of community teams. Although I guess Rameesha, now yours is a community team, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Not through original choice, but for those of you who don't know, the school that Rameesha's team worked out of actually closed this past June, which changed things for them and has made things a little bit more challenging, I guess. But so all of the teams would have to have some parental involvement. Do you have a lot in your team, Michael?
So we do have a decent amount of parental involvement. Our main parental involvement is getting the parents to band together to help prepare meals during the season. But we just have a vast, we've a lot of mentors. So the parents aren't super involved, but we do try to encourage parents to help out, whether that be come in and like, if you're good at something really technical, come in and like try to mentor for a little bit, or ask your work if they want to sponsor us. So while there's no like super direct parent involvement, the parents do help out a little bit with us.
So I think that's a little bit different than your experience at 1241, Rameesha, with parental involvement, if I recall, because I think some of those parents were involved with awards and so forth. No? Or was
yes.
it couldn't all have been Mr. Hobbins?
It could have been at one point, but I think when I was on the team, we had a lot of parents who would come in to help out even with awards, with building like parts of practice fields. We had a lot of parents who would help us in organizing different outreach events. 1325 does this as well, where we basically just ask the parents what their skills are, and then we like slowly rope them into doing things on the team, and then they love it, so they continue to come back. But definitely having the parents help out is huge, especially now that we're a community team. It's really helpful, and the parents who do it love it, and they come back and they bring other parents along, so it's a good experience for everyone.
So one of the things I should mention, and it reminded me because I see Mr. Hobbins has joined us, is that one of the ways that teams can prepare is by making sure they make use of the First Canada mentoring certificate program that is being started by Mr. Hobbins and Jan, who does a lot of the work for us at First Canada on our website and so forth, is mentoring or is prepping for that. So maybe since Mr. Hobbins is on with us, he could quickly talk about why he started this. Well, of course, he's muted himself unless I haven't unmuted him. No. Oh,
I'm Mr. Keaton.
There we go.
Hello, FRC World. Yes. Well, the mentoring certificate. Teams that mentor other teams, whether it's FRC, FLL, Junior FLL, an FLL team mentoring an FLL or an FLL Junior, FRC team mentoring any of those others, they can apply starting tomorrow night, January 30th. It goes live on the First Canada website. There's already a landing page there. You can go have a look. And any team that has mentored one of these teams this season will be able to apply online. It takes about 37 seconds to do. And there would be an automatically generated electronic certificate. And that certificate would go to that lead mentor of the team that applies for it. Part of the process is the lead mentor applies, and then an email gets automatically sent to the mentored team or mentee. So, for example, if 1325 mentored 4476, then they could put those numbers in. 4476 would go online and verify the information that's on that form, and then the certificate would be generated. We are hoping that the judges will be fully informed about this year. So as a way to help give teams evidence of the good work that they do and put that evidence right in their hands as a speaking point so that they can say, look, First Canada has verified, confirmed, authenticated our efforts. And it's very important to know that these certificates are given out according to the chairman's rules. So if you look at the chairman's rules under the definitions of mentored a team, assisted a team, and starting a team, that's the exact criteria that is the same for these certificates, which really helps the teams almost gain two benefits, right? They get the certificate, but it also verifies authenticity towards the chairman's criteria.
And it relates partly to what we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, which is that judges don't know anything about you in most cases. We get a lot of judges, certainly at the provincials, some of the other district events, who are coming up from the States. They may not know who you are. Certainly, if you're a newish team, they may not. So this tells them a little bit about you that's authenticated by First Canada and the team that you mentored. So it's a great thing to have and to keep track of and to have copies of in your pit if you're not doing the chairman's at that particular event, because you may have won it out already in an event, perhaps, or you're a rookie team and you've been outstanding and starting some FLL or FLL junior teams in your school district. So that might be something that you want to keep in mind. It's a great new program, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Hobbins, the Americans at First headquarters are also taking note of it.
Yes, they've actually done some of the beta testing with it to give some feedback on it. And the words from them are, we love, love, love this idea. It hopefully will help give some clarity to the judges in terms of what the teams are presenting to them.
And you've had
just to let you
feedback from the judges too, right?
Yes, exactly. Before all this stuff gets to the competition, for example, the JAs, the judge assistants, judge advisors, will be given a one-pager with the outline of what this program is, so that they'll understand when a team talks to them, and they will likely, quite likely, ask questions about it. So really, the hope is that Canada Leads the Way again gives an opportunity to support our teams for the good work that they're doing to support the First community.
Thanks, Mr. Hobbins. So we have gone over time, and it was not your fault this time, Mr. Hobbins.
It's my fault.
Normally, I would blame you, as I think people that have listened before know, but not this time. And it's been great conversations. But I think what I'd like to end off with is maybe one tip, one lesson learned from competition that each of our panelists could give. Let's maybe start with you, Rameesha. What's one big lesson that you learned that you've passed on?
So one thing that I learned as a student, being a chairman's presenter, is very, very stressful. It's a different kind of stress than maybe the drive team has to deal with. So something I started doing as my first year as a mentor, and I've done ever since, is I like to have a big backpack with me at competition full of like any sort of emergency supply that you could ever think of, like snacks in case somebody skipped breakfast and lunch because they were so nervous, or safety pins, or a comb, or just literally anything you can think of. And then I like to also keep like a deck of cards, because I found that like distracts the students and can help them deal with the stress that they're facing. If you know that your presenters or anybody else on the team has something specific that helps them cope well with anxiety or stress, like have it with you. You never know what's going to happen at competition.
That's a great tip, and we did have last year First Canada playing cards. I just wanted to say that. Michael, what about you? What's one lesson that you learned that you pass along to these teams?
One tip that I would give that my team does is when someone is talking to a judge, you never under any circumstance interrupt them. Under any circumstance. If someone needs them, they're occupied until the judge is talking. It just makes it more professional, and it makes it so the judge isn't talking to 3 or 4 different people because people have to grab them. So if you see someone talking to a judge, don't interrupt them. And this goes to if you see other teams talking to a judge as well, and you need to talk to them about strategy. Just don't interrupt them. Let them talk to the judge. Whatever you need isn't as important as that person talking to the judge.
It's a good tip as well. And Phillip, 1305 surely has something for us as well.
One thing that was kind of funny last year. So our big thing is to make sure you read the awards criteria. So our business side for years has been reading them and constantly encouraging our more so production side to go and read them. And they would always question, like, why wouldn't they win the different awards? Well, then last year they finally went and read the awards descriptions for them, and it was shocking because it was the first time in 13 years we had won Robot Design Awards. So reading those rule descriptions and knowing what to talk about for the different things really makes a big impact.
That's good to know too. So Craig, what about you? You must have a tip for teams.
Oh, there's over 20 awards these guys can work on. They just have to learn not to focus on just the robot and the driving itself, but look at all those various awards. It's wonderful to come away with a medal, but I'd like to encourage all of you guys to show your mentors and coaches some love and give them all, as many as possible, a opportunity to win the Woody Flowers Award. So nominate them for the Woody Flowers Award.
That's good. And another Woody Flowers Award winner, Mr. Hobbins, finalist anyways. Well, what's a tip that you would have? Or have we lost Mr. Hobbins?
I'm back. Sorry, I was nodding off. No, I'm kidding. Well, certainly good tips so far from the audience there and the experts that are sharing in the webinar. One of the things that I would say, and a bit along the lines of what Rameesha was saying, is somebody managing a team, make sure that you give the amount of support that your awards team needs. Give them the time that they need to do what they need to do. The expert support, bring people in to help them out, and to understand that they can't be always building a robot at the same time as preparing that final submission of the Chairman's Award and so on. And that reminds me of the real key point, which is have your awards, the ones that you have to submit, have them ready well in advance of the due date so that you can go over them over and over again. Don't submit it at 11:59 a.m. when it's due at 12.
That's a very good tip, and since I'm running this, I'm going to get the last word in. That did happen with a team I was involved with. The student thought it was at a different time, but one of the and again, the team I was with most was Team 4001 out of Thornhill, Ontario, and every time we competed, we brought team chocolate bars to the judges. So I'm not saying that had an impact, but they talked about it for years after that, and if we weren't at that event, they were asking, would we send chocolate bars anyway? So you never know. You just never know if these people have a sweet tooth. But I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. As always, we will post or upload to YouTube the recording of this webinar. We'll send out the recording link. We'll post a link on our Facebook page, First Canada's Facebook page. I'll send out the handouts as well in an email to everybody that was on the webinar tonight and in the past, and send it out to various other people as well. So once again, I'd like to thank especially our panelists, Michael Geddes, Phillip Carmichael, Rameesha Kazi, as well as our special guests, Craig Maynard, FSM in Calgary in Alberta, and Mr. Hobbins, Regional Director for FIRST in Ontario. So thank you, everybody, and good night.
And thank you, Paul.